Hi there. It's Mara Stiles, MPP for Davenport here, and the official opposition education critic, and I am joining you from my office at home, which is basically in my bedroom where I have this funky thing that I got on Kijiji behind me, and it covers so you can't see my laundry, which is a real thing. And I know you're all doing the same sort of thing, right? You're all trying to find a place, a quiet place. Anyways, I'm here today with you again, MPP Mara Stiles, and the reason I'm doing this IG live today is I met this really interesting young woman a little while ago. She emailed me actually to see, to see if I could talk to her about her campaign that she and some friends had started called No Means No, just like that, no means no. And her name's Emily Webb, and she's a student, young person, and really I'm going to bring her on to explain what she's trying to do. But I thought it was such an interesting conversation, and I really try as much as I can to bring in the voices of students. So any students out there, hello, thanks for joining. And remember that if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm really keen to hear what your thoughts are about a number of things, whatever, curriculum, this whole online learning thing, the fact the government is going to make it a permanent thing now. It is like an attempt to privatize it here in Ontario, stuff like that that's going on. But I'm interested in your perspective. I feel like sometimes we don't we don't amplify the voice of students enough in our conversations about their own education. So I wanted to provide some opportunities for that. So I'm going to invite Emily to join us now in a minute, and I'm going to try to remember how to do this. I am going to join us, but again, I hope everybody's doing well out there. I know it's been a tough time. Hey, there you are.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Emily. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was just doing a little intro while
I
people
heard
start to join us, and I was explaining, Emily, that you contacted me because you were doing this campaign, and I know there was a really great article in the Toronto Star about the work you guys have been doing and the success, amazing success of some of your TikTok videos and stuff around this No Means No campaign. And I wanted to have a chance to share a little bit more about it and some of what you've learned and what you think needs to be done in terms of the curriculum. So first of all, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're doing okay? Everybody's good in your family? Good, good. Okay, so first of all, I was holding up this sign so people know that we're talking about no means no. With a K. So you want to share a little bit about this? Because I should start by saying that here in Ontario, we've had a hell of a battle over the last almost 11 years now. Under the previous government, there was talk about revising the sex ed or health and physical education curriculum here. That got sidelined under the Liberals, and it came back again. Then the Conservative government was elected in 2018. They shelved it. Then students stood up and fought to get it back, and we got it back. And there was I remember back in maybe 2015, 2016, something like that, there were a bunch of students actually in my riding at Cityview High School who really pushed a campaign to have consent included in the curriculum. Yeah. And they were somewhat successful. But I think what you've kind of seen and what you've really focused attention on is that in all of that back and forth and grappling, a lot of young people haven't received that kind of education still. Yeah. But also I think you make some really good points about how you think it could be done better. So anyway, over to you. Why did you decide to kick off this campaign?
Well, I started it in January. I was doing a change and challenge in society class, and she wanted us to make a social change campaign you know, for Ontario or whatever, just on Instagram because of COVID and everything, right? So I was originally going to do, you know, like mental health and COVID, which we all know is a big issue. But then I was on TikTok, which is a big part of my campaign. And I noticed, I saw a video of a young woman who was telling her experience of sexual assault. And in the comment section, it was everyone either agreeing with her or people, you know, like saying things like, it's your fault, all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that just like broke my heart. So I decided that, and I know so many people who've had experiences with sexual assault, and I decided that this was something that I needed to do something about. And if I was given this opportunity to learn how to make, because a lot of people want to make change but have no idea where to start, and this teacher was actually teaching me how to make a change. So that was really awesome. And I started doing that, and it picked up really quickly. A lot of people got really involved really fast and wanted to see this change implemented, because as you mentioned, the curriculum does have consent in it, but it has no specifics on anything they have to teach. They could just say yes means yes or no means no and be totally done with the lesson. And consent is so much more than that. Mm-hmm. And we need to start having that conversation too. I think it's 1 out of every 4 Canadians, this could be wrong, but know even what consent means, which is so scary.
Yeah, it is actually, it's interesting. I mean, I you know, I thought your point is a really good one, that there isn't a lot of consistency. And I mean, I have to say too, like, sort of shout out to the educators who are joining us today, because I know they really struggle. There's not a ton of professional development. The government kind of, you know, shoves all this stuff at everybody, but it's not really clear necessarily what they can and can't teach. But also, I feel like what I've heard from some folks, and I don't know what you're hearing, is that the back and forth and the fight over this curriculum over the last 10 years has had a bit of a chill effect, right? Like where a lot of educators and others might feel like, you know, a bit nervous about, you know, what the response is still going to be, right? And that's unfortunate.
No, I totally agree. Educators are definitely stuck in a really tough spot. I go to a Catholic school, so even more so there, right? You know, they don't want to step on any toes, which is totally understandable. I was actually talking with my mom about this because she was a Catholic principal. She's retired now.
Oh, cool.
Because she brought that up too. And she mentioned that it might be a good idea if we are able to implement a new consent education, then either giving like workshops to, you know, educators, telling them what they should be talking about and how they should be going about it, because these are tough subjects. No one's gonna deny that. These are not easy subjects, and a lot of people don't really understand them themselves, so how are they gonna teach young people about it, you know? And like I said, they're really tough subjects. Or, you know, having like a video pre-done or a workshop, you know, that educators can just bring into the school, so that it's not even as much their responsibility to go about.
Like bringing in those experts who are so good at who, you know, to be able to introduce the topic, you know, in a proper way, and supporting educators. And I think that's really one of the things that's really lacking right now. It's certainly what I hear from them. So I have so many questions, but I wondered what you're like. So you have a petition, and I will, once we post this, I will include the petition in the post. So can you share with us a little bit about like the different elements of the campaign that you have going?
Sure. Okay. So I have a petition. I have the Instagram account that I'm on now, a Twitter account that I don't use as much, and a TikTok account. The TikTok account is like what kind of, you know, increased my petition signatures as high as they are, which was really awesome. And TikTok's tough though, you know, there's some nasty people on there, but it really, I knew it would get the message out. So those are kind of the platforms I'm using right now. TikTok I use kind of like to talk about more what I'm doing, and Instagram I use more as a way to talk about different topics under consent. Like I just posted a recent post on sexual coercion. So,
It's good. And do you find, like, you know, as a young person, you know, you're still in school. Do you find like, I mean, you must get though a lot of people other young people coming to you and saying, you know, this happened to me, or like, do you get a lot of that? Like, how do you manage that? Because that's heavy, right? Like that's
Yeah, I do get quite a bit of that, and it is tough. I also get a lot of questions, you know, too, like also like this happened to me, like what does this mean? What is this? And yeah, it can be tough, and sometimes I do have to take breaks. But I actually want to go into psychology, so it's a little bit of good practice for me. And I also try to like give these people advice, tell them I'm always there for them. They can always come and talk to me, and I relate to their stories, you know, but also not try and like personalize it. Like I already have, like I mentioned, a lot of my friends experience this stuff, and that's really heartbreaking. And you know, you can't get emotionally attached to every person you meet over the internet, but sometimes it happens. Like if you ask my parents, I'll just come out like crying once in a while.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
That's hard. That's hard. I mean, I'm glad to hear you're like, you know, you've got your mom to talk to, and
Yeah.
you have can share that stuff, because that's a tough one, I know,
Yeah.
and especially right now. And I think too, like, okay, so first backing up TikTok, I will be honest, I am not doing the TikTok so much, which I think, to be honest, to be fair, like I'm a middle-aged woman with my own kids who are your age, so I don't really feel like it's necessarily for me. So I'm curious though, but you've got a ton of views. How many do you have for some of those videos that you posted?
The most viral one has over 500K views.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible reach, right?
Thank you.
And they must like, and you must be connecting with people, with so
Yeah.
many people on that.
Yeah. That's honestly one of like getting those tough messages and stuff. It honestly, sometimes, yeah, it can be hard, but sometimes it just makes you feel a lot less alone. And like seeing all, and granted, like I mentioned, there are some, you know, comments that aren't so nice, but for the most part, everyone's really supportive on there. And like, you know, like people will share their stories and other people will share theirs and like offer them support. So that's really awesome. And having that like outreach to that many people is really incredible. I think the most viral TikTok I posted it right around the time a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I want to say, when there was that the whole thing in the UK with the 97% and the, yeah. So there was a lot of like a lot of people were already talking about that matter. So I did a TikTok where I got all my friends, all my family, some acquaintances, and they all held up a sign of a hashtag because that was the time when everyone was going like, it's not all men, you know. So it was kind of on that topic of, you know, it's not all men, but all women have been, you know, afraid or have these experiences, and that's something that we need to be talking about more. So yeah,
and I wondered if that was like also when we talked before about some of the things that you found that you and your supporters and friends, everybody have identified as a shortcoming in the curriculum on consent right now. I mean, one of the issues is are we actually talking about not just girl and women responsibility, but also guys and men and young men and boys' responsibilities. So you want to talk like where do you see like some of the biggest shortcomings?
I think the biggest issue in today's society, in our education and everything, is that when it comes to I'm going to be gender stereotyping here, but males need to call out their friends, and I think that is the biggest issue. Because I think, for instance, you know, and these are common things that we see in everyone, you know, a dude makes a crude comment on a girl's post and his friends laugh at it instead of saying, you know, that's misogynistic behavior that can later lead to some really scary, dangerous stuff. And I think that's a big part of our society right now is laughing or making jokes about things that are rape culture and misogynistic and sexist that and then later people keep, you know, going down this path, getting farther and farther down it, and people just keep laughing or like not saying anything about it, and then it gets to a point where it's like, oh, he sexually assaulted her. Well, he would never do anything like that. He's such a nice guy. But there were warning signs that no one said anything about because they're so normalized. That's not on anyone, but it's so normalized in our culture that, you know, that's okay. That stuff, you know, saying that stuff, commenting that stuff, thinking those stuff is okay, and it's not.
You know, it's interesting. I just did a really amazing workshop, actually free. There's a campaign called the Hollaback campaign, and particularly a woman named Julie Lalonde who does amazing work on like particularly on ending male violence against women, but also like street harassment. And this workshop was actually bystander training for people around street harassment.
Mhm.
But so much of what was taught, and I know similar techniques have been used to talk about like bystander training for, you know, anti-racism work and things like that. And I almost feel like that's kind of, you know, also a piece of this that
Yeah.
needs to be brought in to the
Well,
curriculum, which is, you know, what is and I to be fair, like for like I did this with my 17-year-old daughter who
mhm.
said, you know, and one of her questions was, well, what if you yourself don't feel safe in that moment intervening? Now, I'm not an expert and I'm not going to do that training now, but I do think that's something that's missing, is that kind of
Yeah.
training, and also that talk about responsibility.
Yeah. 100%. And, you know, like in situations like that, it's you, like you want to call out these behaviors, but if, you know, you're in a dark alleyway alone with a big man and you're a small little girl, you're not going to be like, hey, that's inappropriate. You're just going to put your head down and try and get out of there, you know? And that's where I think it becomes a responsibility. Also, granted, if there's like 5 of you and 1 of him, then maybe you can, you know, call out that behavior. And yeah, but that's what I always say to my guy friends. I'm like, you know, you're in the mall and someone cat calls the girl you're with, you can't just be like, laugh it off, because then he thinks it's okay and will do it to someone who doesn't have someone there to protect them. You just say, hey, listen, and you're in a public place, you know, you say, hey, listen, buddy, that's not okay, and you just walk away. And if he does do anything, you're in a public place, you know, I don't think anyone would let it get that far.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
it. And I guess it's like, you know, and I'm not going to, again, like, I'm going to really highly recommend that training for anybody who has questions about any of this, because I think it's really important to, for
Definitely.
anybody. But I also really want to encourage people who have privilege, you know, like
Yeah.
I have privilege
Me
as a
too.
white
Yeah.
woman. And I think, you know, there are a lot of us out there, people who have some degree of privilege. And so to learn how, you know, to also use that, you know,
Yeah.
to be, because you don't always want to be the one, like you said, who is directly engaging. That may not be the right call.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
but
also,
you can use other techniques like distracting and
yeah,
documenting and
100%.
things like that.
And like I said, like, and this goes for girls too, you know, you're at a party and your friend says like a crude comment about someone, you know, maybe you're like, you don't want to embarrass them, you don't want to call them out in front of everyone there, but you know, like you're on the drive home and you listen, hey, what you said kind of made me uncomfortable, and I'm sure it made them uncomfortable too, so maybe, you know, just be more careful next time. It doesn't have to be like some aggressive encounter, you know, it can just be a very gentle, like, you know, watch your language kind of thing.
I really appreciate that. And I think it's like, this is such an important conversation to have. And I hope we can, you know, maybe kickstart other people into having that conversation. So again, remind me now, where can people find your petition, and how many people have signed your petition so far?
So it's in my Instagram bio here, as well as my TikTok bio. But if you just go here, it's in the link tree. And it has over 22,000 signatures.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, when I first started the petition, my mom was like, so what's your goal? And I was like 10,000, and she told me after, when I got 10,000, she was like, I really thought like that was a joke, like I really did not think you were gonna do that. And now it's at 22,000, which is awesome, and it shows that really a lot of people really believe that there needs to be a change here.
That's fantastic. You know, I feel like some of the most impactful, like I said earlier at the start of all this, some of the most impactful organizing that's happened over the last few years, but even going back further, you know, has been when students organized. When the first curriculum, when the conservatives first rolled back the curriculum in 2018, right? And then the students were the ones that walked out. And I always say to people, like, that was the moment. Yeah, Stephen Mensa is on there. He's the head of the Toronto Youth Cabinet. Lots of great people doing this here right now. Anyways, I mean, that was such an important moment, because that was, for me, that was like, I thought, you know, that was when I could tell that the government was like shaking in their boots. I think that is not to be underestimated at all. And so I'm really excited about what you've done. I think it's great. I think this is how we make change. And I guess maybe, like, let's end on that note. What have you learned? People right now are asking me constantly, like, what can we do about that issue? How do we make our voices heard, especially in the middle of a pandemic? What can
Yeah.
we do? And so I want to ask you, what have you learned from all of this so far?
Honestly, I like at the beginning of I thought like my voice really doesn't matter. Like this is gonna be a campaign for like me and like five of my friends. Um, but doing this, I'm like, people care what you have to say. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, especially if you're someone directly experiencing it. Like, obviously, I can't talk about issues in like old folks' homes because I wouldn't know. But, you know, I'm a teenager in high school and I know what people are facing. And that's why I started this year, not next year, because I'm leaving very soon. But, I think, yeah, and people are really like and people recognize the issue too. And I think that's a big thing that I learned is that a lot of people know this stuff is going on, but again, don't know how to talk about it, don't know how to start it. And like when I started this campaign, I knew I wanted to change. I knew there was some sexual assault numbers were too high. I knew that was a really big issue, especially amongst young people after, you know, the whole recent Tristan Bailey thing, horrible. But yeah, no, I knew this was a big issue, and doing my class and like learning about the social change campaign, I learned that the issue or the way that we can make the biggest impact to this issue was through consent education and health education. Obviously, there's a lot of other things we can work on and a lot of other things we can do, you know, the judicial system, everything.
Yeah.
But, you know, targeting the education system will make the biggest difference, I think the fastest, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean that's like, you know, that is what's so wonderful about public education, right? Is we can reach so many people.
Yeah.
We can have such impact. And so, you know, making a change like this to curriculum or continuing to strengthen those elements of the curriculum are super important. And I just want to, before we head off, I want to mention as well, I really feel strongly about issues like slut shaming, school, I'm trying to find the words now, clothing and the policing of girls in particular, but a policing of people around the clothing they wear in schools and stuff, and school dress codes. I think this is something, again, that we have to really address as a province, as a country, as a society. It's gone on for too long, and there's no question that it's gendered.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember because like I said, I went to a Catholic school. I remember being like in first grade and not allowed to wear like a tank top. I was like 6 and my shoulders were being sexualized. That tells girls from a very young age that like, one, it's on you. What happens to you is on you. And two, your body is not yours. It's others to make comments on. And that is something that one of the biggest things that I talk about in everywhere is I really think a big issue, and this doesn't just come from consent education, but in the home as well, is we make a lot of young kids feel uncomfortable from very young ages just by doing simple things that are so normalized, like hug your grandparent. But if you don't want to hug your grandparent and you hug them anyways, and you grow up with things like that, you become very uncomfortable. You become very comfortable being uncomfortable. So then when you grow up and, you know, you're in a public place, you're at a party or whatever, and a dude grabs your boob, you're like, oh, well, I'm used to being uncomfortable, so maybe that's normal, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good example. And I mean, there's so much we could be doing as well to support parents in learning how to think about issues like consent and how you would start to introduce some of those things in different ways. Obviously, age appropriate ways at a very young age. But I also thought a lot of what you've written and your interview in the Toronto Star and stuff made a really good point, which is that we do need to have honest, real conversations with young people about these issues. Like we can't, just keep skirting around it and not, and talk about, like, as you said, yes means yes and no means no, but not talk about like what is, what actually we're talking about here, which is
100%.
Inappropriate touching or, sexual assault or, harassment.
And unfortunately that stuff happens to young people as well, right? And I think, if we want to implement more age appropriate things, we can do, you're taught in kindergarten, I'm not supposed to push over another kid's pile of blocks. That's their pile of blocks. Well, we should be teaching them, I can't walk up to someone and hug them unless they tell me that is okay. That's bodily autonomy right there. And that's consent. And, and I was also taught, I had a conference on Wednesday with a sexual health group of McMaster's residents. And that was really interesting. I learned a lot from that. But they talked a lot about how to appropriately talk with young people about, you know, if there's, because they have to get a full workup of your sexual history and all of that, right? And how to bring that up without making anyone uncomfortable or seen. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought, a part of me really thinks that if we had a lot of different people from different professions, like the medical world, the educating world, and we sat them down to all have this conversation about consent and sexual health, I think we would all learn a lot from each other. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, if that's, and no, ideally that's how curriculum should be developed, right? Is like with lots of different experts who come
Coming
together and also frankly, the voice of young people, which I think is again, overlooked often.
Yeah.
So listen, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, Emily, I always, when people ask me like what it's been like being an MPP or what I like the most about it, one of the things that I always raise is that I have this opportunity to learn about so many different things and talk to so many different people. But my favorite thing is talking to young people and students in particular. And so I feel like if I can share some of what I get to experience with others, then great. So I hope that everybody will go to No Means No. This is what, when I say it, I mean it like this. No Means No Instagram page. Go to the bio. That's where you can get a link to the petition. And I really appreciate your time, Emily. I know it's probably a busy time for all you students out there, but also a beautiful day. So I hope you get out and enjoy it a little bit today.
100%.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, too. Take care. Stay well.